So welcome to another War Game review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're doing our first impressions, we're going to call it, for A Most Fearful Sacrifice from Flying Pig Games. This is a very large box, so I'm just going to put it down.
As are all of
But
their games,
great
frankly.
artwork. You'll love to see
it's
a nice
very
picture.
well done.
So, A Most Fearful Sacrifice. It is a two-player hex encounter, extremely large war game
Yep.
that covers the Battle of Gettysburg.
The 3 days of the Battle of
3
Gettysburg,
days.
July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Yep.
And it's designed by Herman Luttman. And my understanding of this is that this is Herman Luttman's first ever game that is all 3 days of Gettysburg.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's done
The
a number of
Devils,
other games, right?
Pay, yep.
But those have been like 1 day or
Yep.
2 days. He's never done all 3 days. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And it is very, very, very big.
and glorious,
Yes.
frankly.
Like-
we really enjoyed it,
If
if you can't tell.
I think, so this box size is a similar size to something like OST.
Armageddon War. I think they have a stock in that size box, and they just
Yes.
making them.
But like OST comes with one map this size.
No.
Yeah, it's double-sided, right? It's one massive map
Yeah,
in OST.
it's double-sided. Yeah,
This
yeah.
comes
Is
with
it double-sided?
2 of these. Some of them are, I think.
I
Because
feel
one
like
had a Stalingrad in it.
I feel like Pacific had 2 maps, but that's I'm not sure that's that important.
Either way, this
Let's
is
move on.
2 huge
Yeah.
Rick Barber maps, and it's
Beautiful Rick
absolutely
Barber
massive.
maps.
Like, my table is 3 foot by 5 foot, and I can only fit one of the maps on the table.
And unfortunately, this game really deserves to have both of the maps out, and you're playing the whole shebang.
Yeah,
Right.
you would be forced to say that this is a monster game, I think.
No doubt.
Like,
But it's not a complicated or complex monster game.
It's a
But I
monster
believe it is a monster in
based-
size.
volumetrically and
Yep.
and in game length.
Yep.
Just if you play all 3 days, start to finish, that will take you a long time.
40 hours is my guess.
Probably more than that.
I mean, we played for 4 hours and we did 3 hours of game time.
But yeah, we also were learning. I wonder if sometimes they say on here, playing time 1 hour to 3 days.
There you go.
So-
the 3 days of Gettysburg.
You can do 72 hours, and that
There you
sounds
go.
fairly reasonable to me.
And the reason for that is not that there's complex rules. There are a lot of units, and all those units can do a lot of different things, attacks, and you might have a close combat. You win that, you force someone to retreat. You're going to follow that up with another one.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, you had 3 units lined up. They all can do that. So you got to go through that process. It's just intensive.
Yeah, it's
not
it's
difficult.
involved. And
Yeah.
then
Lots of modifiers you have to look at.
and the other length of that comes in those later turns when there's more cores and divisions out. There's just more to activate, and
Yeah.
it'll take time. It's like any of those games, right?
Yep.
Early game, there's not many units. It kind of goes at a good clip, and then it slows down a bit from turn to turn because you get more units you got to activate,
Well,
right?
and, yeah, more units. You don't get any more events. But
I don't think
you,
so.
you already
anyway.
have 16 events in there. So that first turn, your deck typically is 20-ish cards, give or take. 16 of those are the random events. 2 to 4 of those are the activation cards. Now, later in the game, you're still going to have the 16 events.
But you're also going to
You might have
like,
6 activation cards apiece.
yes,
Or 4.
which is
or
much
5.
closer to
Yeah.
50-50 ratio. But each of those core activations takes a much longer time than
Oh,
the
yeah.
little crappy events, right? So that's, understand that
And they're not crappy events. They're cool events.
No, but it's a little small thing compared to your
Right.
big core stuff.
Yeah, true.
So this game was extremely fun to play mechanically speaking.
Oh, no doubt.
And I would go as far to venture that it deserves to be played for the whole thing, right?
Well, we simply played one of the introductory, and I don't know if it was an introductory scenario. It's pretty big.
I tried to pick one of the bigger ones.
I think the Slaughter Pen was the smallest one
Yeah.
that had a lot of action kind of over on the east side there of Gettysburg. But the one we picked I thought was very good because I think it covered a lot of the aspects of the game.
Yeah, and it was kind of I picked that because it was also like you can do it for a little bit,
Yeah.
but if you want to keep going, you can parlay this into like the whole of the first day.
Very true.
So I was like,
Yeah.
that might be interesting to see, and just we keep going. with
Yeah.
it. But Yeah, I think it's a game that, because it's fun to do, warrants playing the whole thing.
Oh, no doubt.
That, there are some games out there where you're like, I want a little scenario of this, I want to have a nibble, and I'm satisfied. This is one where you're like,
we've played a lot of games like that.
if I had the space, which one day we will, hopefully soon, this is a setup, and just you keep coming back to this and keep going with it, and
You
it'll
play
be
3 or
great.
4 turns of an evening, and you might play another game on another table,
Yeah.
right? And then next weekend you kind of come back to this. You might play 6 turns, but we learned the system based. We cut our teeth on it, right? We have played Blind Swords before. Now this is called Black Swan.
Yes.
It's a modification of that. I think intended to make it a little more easy to get into.
Yeah, bit of a
I don't want to
freshen
say
up.
introductory, but
Well, instead of having like chip pull
You
and
have
then a bunch of
cards.
rules and charts you got to reference,
Yeah.
it's the cards, and pretty much everything's written on the cards,
Right.
which is nice.
makes it a little more easy to play it. But we've played At Any Cost before. That is the Franco-Prussian War,
Yeah.
right? 1870s. Did I say 17 or 70?
That one specifically is 1870.
Okay. So it's the same time period, right? This is 1863. So it's the same time period. But we played that system. That is a very crunchy, numbers involved, lots of percentile dice.
Yeah,
I remember.
You know what would be fascinating?
But it was great.
It was really fun, and whilst these games are mechanically quite different in some of their executions, I could tell they were Herman Luckman designs.
Yes.
And they had some of the same feelings. They evoked some of the same things where it was like, I was frustrated at my lack of commands, or like the assault combats got out of hand very quickly.
Yeah.
And
Well, they kind of snowball, frankly. And I felt like at Any Cost they did as
right.
well.
I remember in that game having French units charging through a forest up a ravine against machine gun and cannon, and
Getting obliterated.
you couldn't not do it.
Yeah,
because of the orders that were issued, and
Yeah.
they would just and it's similar feels in this. Some of the small actions are just like, oh,
Yeah.
just awful things, but you might be forced into that because you've got to order every one of the division to do the same thing. That's really good for 90% of it. But this little 10% over here, you're like, all right, we're going to take an L over here.
Yeah, yeah.
to make some progress over here.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's really neat to do that. He's an excellent designer in that way.
Well, and we said this as we were playing. There's a great structure to this, a really good system, very solid, very, very Grognard-like. It's got a lot of war game in it, but it's also got this side of it that is a little bit gamey, and it makes it feel like you're playing a game.
Yeah.
Because of the random events and the different things that happen, and if you roll doubles on combat dice, you get a combat event.
Yeah.
Either
and
for
the
the
combat event's like, oh, something crazy happens.
Yeah, either for the defender or the attacker, and that's cool, right? It kept
fun.
me on the edge of my seat. It kept me engaged. It made me keep wondering, what's going to happen next, and how's this going to turn out? I never really knew.
Yeah.
A lot of times we've played these big war games where you have lines of hexes and counters, and they're all lined up in a nice little row, and you just kind of ebb and flow and push and be pushed. And this had a lot of maneuver. It had a lot of craziness that happened. The 4 Fs, right? The friction of war, fog of war, fatigue of war. I can't remember.
And the other one.
Command or something, but it's not an F. That's not an F. Anyway, it had it all in there and made it feel like I never really knew what was going to happen.
And
I'm
one
okay with that.
One of the hallmarks of this and the other ones in this style of system that he does, kind of like you said, you can never know what's going to happen.
No.
Like every other game, you're like, all right, I'm going to calculate my odds. Great, I'm going to max out my odds.
Yep.
I'm going to roll a die.
I need 2 more factors to
and
make
I'm
this a
definitely going to
3-to-1
mess
attack.
you up.
Yeah.
In this game, you can have done that and roll that die, and every other game, that's where that ends. Cool.
Yeah.
But in this one, I can roll a result, and that result, more often than not, is I'm forced to make a cohesion check.
Yeah.
So I make my little cohesion check, so there's like this extra layer there. And then depending on what happens to the cohesion check, I might have to then make subsequent rolls. If I'm already
panic or-
shaken, and battle worn, I may then have to make a break check.
Yep.
And if I make a break check, I might run away. But if
Skedaddle.
or if I break and I go to the broken box,
Mm-hmm.
anyone I was stacked with has to make a panic roll.
That was cool.
So, like,
that was interesting.
you can get into these cascades of things that happen, which is also part of the reason the game kind of takes a long time, because sometimes you like get down to these rabbit holes of knock-on effects of things that happen. But
Yeah.
to me, it makes the game much more interesting, because it's not just like, here's my combat factors, I defeat you, you're dead, and or you retreat.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
that
a
can
lot
happen,
of after effects.
but yeah,
Yep.
it's you can never be guaranteed of something,
No.
because I might pass my checks, I might pass all my checks, I might fail some of my checks and then pass later ones.
Yeah.
And the actual thing that happens at the end of your combat, you can never be sure of what it is. And I just think that's very, very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing we didn't really, you kind of mentioned it when you roll your dice. The system uses a very cool, I think, combat mechanic where you're rolling 2d6, and these are black, and one's black and one's white. The black is always the...
Well, it's either one. The rules say like roll the black and white dice, so I just chose the black one to be the first one.
Right, but you decide this is your 10s,
Yes.
right? And then this is your 1s. So you're rolling those, you're not adding them together. I rolled a 32.
Yes.
So the result range is like 11 to
66.
66. So it makes for a lot of opportunity for minimal differences between striations on that CRT.
Yeah. The CRT's just got a much more cool distribution
Yeah.
of results, and then you've got the matrix between the two opposing results when you do assault combat as well.
Yeah,
that
right,
are a
that was
result
cool.
of that big thing as well. So
Yep.
just so much.
Well,
in
and
there.
it, just like many other games, it has a lot of DRMs. You know, you're gonna or modifiers, right? You know, modifiers to the. Sorry, what am I trying to
So
say here?
it's a lot of column shifts.
Yeah, column shifts. That's what I mean. But you got to go through those, but you start to remember them, and you start to it becomes more intuitive. But when you get a combat in your favor, man, you want to press that,
Yeah.
right? Like once I better understood how close combat worked, you know, it's like you get a quick shot with your muskets or your rifles, and then you can charge. You want to shoot them and try to soften them up, because you know getting that shaken modifier reduces the CR, and all of a sudden you have a big advantage. You might get
Yeah.
3 column shifts, or I got as high as one time I got 8.
Yeah,
Because you were shaken, you were broken.
You had, and it was you get a number of shifts equal to the difference in the cohesion rating.
Yep.
And I was lone,
I was like
dismounted horse artillery.
my combat factor was 6, yours was 1, so it was
was
6 to 1.
Like all the
Yeah.
things were bad.
It was just really interesting, but I loved the way that the variations. I mean, that's a huge CRT. I love it
in a good way.
in a good way. It's not complex. You're looking for I liked the colors. Here, I'll show you that. But the colors, green is easy, yellow is kind of medium,
Yeah.
red is hard, and like the gray one is like, oh,
The gray ones, you're dead.
you're dead.
But
dead.
all the other colored results are the type of kind of cohesion check that you have to make.
Right.
And so you
then you
look
go
at
to
the
this
cohesion table.
Yeah,
and,
right there.
And, you know, it's how easy or difficult is it to pass your cohesion check.
And
as
there's a
result of
big
it.
difference between. I mean, if
Massive
you look at the results when you're looking from this one to this one, that's a huge difference.
Well, yeah, when you get the green ones,
the
you don't
lowest.
really worry about it. When you get the yellows or the red ones, you're
You
like,
start to
"Oh,
sweat a little
not
bit."
good. Yeah, you know it. You know it's probably very bad. And you have to roll very well.
Really liked that. I like the opposed results on the assault combat. Very cool. Loved the battle events. I just thought that concept was very interesting, although we never really had it happen.
Yeah.
But I was looking at that going, please roll doubles, and you never did.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was-
think we ever did.
It's
So,
which is probably very unlikely
right.
because you roll.
Actually, I think you did on your first roll, and we missed it.
But-
because you rolled double 6s, so that would have been
that's right. The very first roll of the game.
was boxcars. So you would have like had.
There's
I
like a
mean-
frenzy result that it does.
Yeah,
stuff
you
there.
would have
I
like killed half the
But we-
dudes, but we missed
don't-
that.
It was too early. We were learning.
So we learned that. But anyway, great combat system. Loved the cards. The other thing I really loved about the cards was these events. they're very situational.
Yeah.
So like you're going to get this and it's going to say hold.
Until this particular
Yeah,
thing, and you
until
play it.
you get a skedaddle result, or until the Union player does a maneuver action. Then you can play those. Or you can decide, you know what, it's late in the game. I need this. I just need this little free attack. So this, having these default events, makes it okay that there's really only 1 or 2 activations in the deck. It makes it able so I can do something lesser, but I can still do something.
Yeah.
And it kept me engaged, because a lot of times we talked about this in a chit pull game. We've played them, we love them.
Yep.
If you get you pull 5 or 6 of your chits, I'm kind of sitting there,
Not doing
getting
a lot.
attacked, getting beat up. These cards allow me to sometimes interrupt what's going on, sometimes force you to re-roll, sometimes change a result, or allow me to kind of throw it down and say, I'm going to shoot because I'm tired of getting
and
shot.
it might be only a little fire attack with
it's one unit.
Or do a min move to plug a gap in your line.
But that's what's needed.
Yes.
And I thought that was very cool, and I thought a very good choice to make a game a lot more dynamic.
Yeah, I felt like, but you've got the larger brigade and divisional activations that are going on, and you have all these little minor bits and pieces going on without it being a particularly complex addition to the game, but it made the game more than just the red guys move, and then my purple guys move,
Right.
and then
I go,
your
you
blue
go.
guys move.
Yeah.
There's these little bits and pieces in between, and sometimes those things can make a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
And I really liked that part of the game because it felt more like how I would imagine a battle is, where you've like, here's a major action going on, and then it's like a little skirmish or a little thing or some opportunity fire that's going on.
Right.
Just little bits splashed in between your larger maneuvers. That's a really neat concept and was very well executed in this.
We've played a lot of Herman's games. I think this is my favorite of his games. I'm going to be honest. It's a true war game, but there's a lot to like here.
Yeah.
It's very playable. A lot goes on. A lot happens. But the time passes quickly, and I was really engaged and having a great time. Part of that, I think, is the production value on this is really great.
Yeah, it looks great on the table.
Counters are fantastic. I tweeted a picture, and someone said, those counters are hard to read. I'm like, dude, there's 2 numbers on them.
Yeah, the reality is...
You got a combat factor and a cohesion rating. The rest of it's just window dressing.
Well, yeah, or it's like divisional and brigade notation that like is like...
Yeah, but that just helps you.
You look at it and you're like, that's what it is.
That's an HE unit. That's Heth. I get to move him.
The one thing I really loved about this game is that for each of your brigades, there are a number of pips down the side of the counter that tell you how many units are in that brigade. And so when you've got mixed stacking of formations, you're like, okay,
there are 3 of those.
I've got one of them, and it tells me that there's 2 more.
Yeah.
And I think about Gallipoli from GMT.
my gosh.
That was one of the worst offenders of
Mass
that.
of cardboard, and they're
Because
all...
you didn't know how many units were in each formation, and they were all mixed with each other, and it was just the worst.
Yeah.
But a real simple, just like, here's a number of pips. Okay, at least I know when to stop looking.
Right.
You're right. Once I found all 3.
I found the 3, I'm done. And that was cool.
But also, the stacking is such that you know, it's
1 or 2 units
yeah,
is basically
at
all.
most 3,
Yeah.
and you're trying to keep your brigades generally fairly close together anyway for a lot of the event bonuses and things.
Yeah, because a lot of them say activate units stacked together of the same brigade
that are
or
grouped.
adjacent. So that is important. And I made a mistake early on. I think I would have actually broken off Davis. So yeah, I had another Davis unit. I would have moved him with him.
Yeah, you want to keep your brigades, which are the kind of the smallest formations, together generally.
But that's something we learned, right? But back to the production is really top notch. Counters are great. They look great. I think they're very easy to read. Sorry. They're pre-rounded, except for the administrative markers.
Yeah, so all the units and the shaken markers, which are the larger 1-inch counters, those are all pre-rounded. Beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful. There's, I think, just 1 sheet of other counters.
So probably 100 counters.
Yeah,
that were
those were
admin.
all. I rounded those with my little corner clippers.
Right. We clip them.
And those are great.
But those were well done. The map is beautiful. This is a Rick Barber map. We talked about this. What?
And
They have a little insert
There was a little insert about Rick, and
because he passed away. Was it earlier this year?
it was
Last year.
from when this was made in 2022. I believe
Right.
he died in 2021.
Okay.
But yeah, they had a little nice portrait of
In
him
memoriam.
and a
Yeah.
little kind of few words. So that was very nice.
Yeah. Well, but
appreciated that
this
too.
Rick Barber map. This one is really interesting because it really looks hand drawn. We had a discussion about this. Was it computer generated to look hand drawn? I don't think so. I think it was hand drawn,
Yes.
then digitized,
Yes.
and put on. But it really is unique. There's a lot of character here. In fact, we kept talking about the roads. There's some slight variance, but it's clear this is a major road because this one's thick.
Yeah.
But this one looks a little thicker than the major road, but it's still a major road.
Yeah.
Or this lane is a little thinner than that lane over there. It doesn't matter.
But that one's still a lane.
It's still a lane. And the other thing I really liked about it is the use of color. The higher the elevation, top of a ridge, top of a hill, the brighter the color. Yellow, orange, kind of
That's like the tops
lighter
of hills,
right?
and
then
things.
you've got tops of ridges are like light green, deep ridges like creek beds, stream beds, gullies or valleys are kind of a darker green. At first it looks like, whoa, there's a lot of color there, but once you start putting that together, it's like, oh, this is perfect. Really perfect delineation of the different colors. There's also a washed effect. I made a comment about this earlier. It looks like you took the colored pencils and scribbled these hexes in with the colors, but then it's been washed where the lines are kind of blurred.
It's more
so it's more
uniform.
even. Yeah.
But there are still some parts where there's little imperfections
And
where you're like, I know
like
that
it.
was him having
Yep.
done it.
I really like the way it looks. I think it gives a lot of character. The hand-drawn nature, the variance in the different types of roads and things, and then the colors, and then the wash effect is just really nice. Plus the trees and the rocks.
It has the artist's touch to the map.
Oh, no
which
doubt.
is really nice. And it is a quintessential Rick Barber map. You can't look at this and not know who did it.
I think this is the best one I've seen of his, frankly, and we've seen a couple of others, but I really like this one.
I'm inclined to agree.
A lot. What was that game we played by John Paniski? Devil
Devil
Dogs.
Dogs.
That was a Rick Barber map.
Yes.
Had a lot of similar color usage.
What I like about this one versus some of his other ones that I've seen is that this is much bigger,
Yes.
and as such,
There's a lot more detail.
but it's also I feel like I can appreciate it a little better because sometimes it can feel a little bit busy on some of those small scale ones where it's a little bit more
Yeah.
crammed in, and the hex grid is kind of like
This is spread out.
a lot of because it's just blown up.
Yeah.
It's not like it's more land.
No, no.
Like you could put this on a 22 by 34 and just shrink it down, and that's what everyone else does.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the size of it, I feel like I can appreciate a bit more of like see everything and understand it a bit better as well. I
Well,
can
and this
read it a
allows
bit
for these
easier.
half-inch counters and you know these bigger counters. That's nice. So production's really great. I was a little concerned about the cards though. You're going to use these cards a ton. We've only played 3 rounds, and there's a lot of markings on these already.
So-
I'm surprised by that.
Well,
Need to be sleeved
yes.
for sure.
Because if you think about how much you beat up your chits in a chip pull game,
Yep.
this is a deck of linen finished cards, and you beat them up just as much.
Yep.
But they made, I don't want to say like the criminal error, but the back of the cards have a black border.
Yeah.
And every card player knows, all the
Should,
Magic
yep.
players are like, ugh,
Yep.
you've got to sleeve them, because otherwise...
Should have been white.
They just get all dinged and
Yep.
and bashing.
Well, you can,
and it's
like I said, you can already see that, and
Yeah.
that's a shame.
And no one's cheating doing that.
No, I can't.
But like, it just is sad because
Yeah.
you're like, it's so nice. You just want to preserve it. So sleeve
Right.
cards. The
Alexander, I can't remember what I had for dinner 3 hours ago.
yes,
I can't remember that. Oh, this little mark on the upper right-hand corner is the.
I know
blah,
I'm gonna
blah,
have.
blah
I
event.
know I'm gonna
Yeah.
have Reynolds
I'm
Commander
sorry.
in Chief card coming up next.
If you can do that, good on you. Probably go to Vegas, right? I mean,
you're probably in the wrong hub.
yeah, you're doing something wrong. But I had an excellent experience with this.
Yes.
My first impression of this is it's just fantastic. Yeah, that's a problem.
This is
a problem.
This is probably the only problem with this
Yeah.
game. Is this is the play aid, and That
Look how
is
small it is.
so sad. So small a font.
And Mark, I'm surprised because I think you always pride yourself on making these things really great and big, and man, that's just too small. I got glasses and I can.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
yikes.
have a hard time reading this.
Yikes.
And there's only one of each
Which is
in the game.
a crime.
So when we set this up again,
Well, there are ones on BGG.
that's exactly
We need
what
to
we're
print
doing.
those off. We need to print 2 of each off.
Exactly.
And blow them up so we can actually. It's just too small.
You can play
It's
off of
just-
these.
Yep,
We
it's
did
just too
it.
small.
I know that a lot of you might not be able to, though.
Yeah,
This is
it's-
like, I don't know if I've ever seen text so small.
Well,
Genuinely in a war game.
And on something like this, where you're going to be referring to it over and over and
Yeah.
over again, if it's something I'm only going to look at once or twice a game, I can let that slide. But stuff like this, this is better than that. I can read this for the most part, although some of these numbers are very small. You just can't do that. Not when most of the
Yeah.
people playing these games are 45 and above.
We here at the
50 and
Player's
above.
Aid love a good Player's
Player's Aid,
Aid.
yep, there's
And
no doubt.
The information on these is good.
Yep.
Its formatting is unfortunate,
Yeah.
to say the least.
And I just don't know why they just didn't put this on a legal size sheet. You've already made a $125 game.
Or just, provide 2 of them.
Right. Or put this on 2 different sheets. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that too much
because
it's-
the rest of the game
it's
is
fantastic.
excellent and should be checked out for sure.
And there's so much to like here. This is just our first impression.
Yeah.
I think we've already talked for 30 or
Though-
40 minutes.
Yeah, so
but-
there will be more of this coming in the future.
Yeah, we're not going to show the board. There's a lot of pictures on Twitter and our Facebook. You can find the pictures online. They're everywhere. It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
Looks great.
If you've played Blind Swords, you'll know pretty much where this game's
Yeah.
at. But it's effectively a chit pull to move guys around, fighting. And it feels like we've talked about at any cost. This feels very period. It's
Yes.
You have to be stationary to shoot. That's the first thing you do on your turn. And then you move, and then you charge into combat.
Yeah.
And there's defensive fire.
get grape
and
shot
you
to
might
the
just
face.
run right away, or you get into melee, and it is a
Yeah.
bayonet attack, and it is brutal.
That was the other thing I did like about the artillery. There are basically 3 different types. There's smoothbore, rifled,
And then mixed.
And mixed typically was the grape shot, I think, right?
Well, the mixed is you have some rifled pieces and some smoothbore pieces.
so it changes their
represented.
range. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got the range of a rifled, but they take a negative column shift
Right.
because they're not quite as good.
But I really liked that, and one of the things I remembered so well, or enjoyed quite a bit at Any Cost, was the grape shot and the cannon, and that was
When you walk up to a cannon
You know
and you're
it's
adjacent
coming.
to it, they blast you in the face,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of positive column shifts, and it's very
and the
painful.
reason I like that is because 1, it's uber realistic, and 2, you've really got to prepare for that. You can't send your wounded, shaken, battle worn units up there. You're just asking to get them broken or shattered. And I like that because you got to think about it. It's not just move up, attack. I had to really think carefully because I was trying to preserve my troops because there was a long battle ahead of us.
Yeah,
So
you don't want to break yourself on the first line of defense
yeah.
because
Congrats, you took this ridge, but now you have
gotta
no
do the
fighting.
rest of it.
You're combat ineffective. So lots to like with this game. I enjoyed it, but we're going to try to set it up, do the full 2 map, the full shebang. Maybe we'll play it over a couple of months.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll do some AAR videos as we
That'll
go
be
through.
cool.
And I want to do some written content on this because there's a lot to like here. But I think we're going to do some more work. We just need to get our table done. It's just too big for what we've got.
Physically, I can't fit anything. I've got the little off-map sheets, which are
Well, it's
barely
it's
hanging
off
off
the table.
and one of the maps. I
Yeah.
physically don't have the space for it.
No, you don't. I don't either. My table's smaller than this.
And again,
We'd
this
have
is a
barely got
3x5,
this on there.
so I
Yeah.
think a lot of people might struggle with that.
Yeah. But once we get our big table, we're gonna do it up.
Yes,
We're gonna do it up right.
absolutely.
So look for more videos in the future.
So, A Most Fearful Sacrifice by Herman Luttman from Flying Pig Games.
One other comment I would have about this is they are talking about a second printing Kickstarter.
Okay.
I don't know when. I don't know if it's in 3 months, 2 months, next. I don't know, but they're talking about a second print run Kickstarter on this pretty quick because I think
I would hope you would get it for a good price, I presume.
I would, and you're going to pay $125 for this right now, and it's worth it. It's worth every penny. Get it on Kickstarter, save yourself 20%.
Yeah, I've paid $120 for a lot less in more
Oh,
gaming.
we talked about that. The company that shall not be named. That we do like their games, but
even
$120 gets you nothing.
Yeah.
This is something.
So,
I could beat someone up with this box.
oh yeah,
I could throw this at you and you wouldn't be getting up.
it was
That's a good sign.
really enjoyable to play with.
Yes, absolutely.
So, A Most Fearful Sacrifice from Flying Pig Games. Check it out. If you're interested, appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.